So that's been the biggest thing, is overcoming my scarcity mindset on like, oh my God, you need to make money. Oh my God, you're a failure. And being able to, when I remember, sit in a place of, I love creating. I want to create good things. So I'm going to do it.
It's a good way to think about it. Hey guys, it's your girl Eccaia, and you're watching Spill It. It's a show that gives you a glimpse into the performer's mindset and reveals the person behind the persona. In this week's episode, we've got Michael Masurkevitch. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today.
Kaya, thank you so very much for having me. This is super fun. I'm a big fan of your nunchucking skills. Like,
Thank you.
I do a lot of martial arts, and I can confidently say you could definitely take me down.
And you're an actor, screenwriter, producer, and musician. How did you first get interested in the arts?
I so when I was a small child, I just had a very tenuous grip on reality. I would talk about things and my parents were like, that's not real. I would have imaginary friends who I would hang out with. I would make elaborate stories with my sister and I hanging in the backyard because my parents didn't believe in television, so we'd entertain ourselves. And I would, make up these massive plots involving our imaginary friends, and we would like chase them down and stuff. And I was just always creating in my mind. One time, it was grade 4 and we had silent reading time, and my teacher put on Pachelbel's Canon, and I just found myself sitting under a table writing poetry, which was terrible, but like at the time I thought it was amazing, and just crying at the beauty of my own poetry under the table. Meanwhile, everyone else is just like, I went to the mall, and I'm just like sitting under a table sobbing as I pen these verses. So, it's just always kind of been like it's just always that thing of like wanting to create things to make myself and other people feel that don't necessarily have to be real life, because I'm not super grounded in what people consider to be reality.
Well, I
But
mean, you
yeah,
have to start somewhere.
yeah, I will tell you a funny story. When I was like 7, and and this was already my life. Like my aunt and uncle would come over, and I would just come downstairs dressed in my mother's clothing, covered in beads, and sing a song to them as Elton John. Like this is who I was. And then my parents took me to see my uncle, who's an actor. He's a theater actor, Patrick Masurkevitch, and he was doing Pirates of the Caribbean. He was Billy Bones. He was fantastic, and it was at a dinner theater, and he pulled some strings so that I was one of the kids who got brought up on stage to be a small pirate. And and the other kids were sort of like, and I was just like screaming at the villains and brandishing my sword. And it was like, I want to do this. So more or less since then, I've wanted to be an actor or something. And then like the writing, in it, like I've always loved writing, and then it became like helpful to the acting to write myself things to
Yeah,
act in, and then I had to produce because if I wanted to be in something that I had written, someone's got to produce it. That's going to be me.
true.
Yeah, and that's kind of, and we're here. I had a quarter life crisis at 25 where I was working in a call center and really disliking it, because I had a baby in high school and realized I needed a real job. So I did a degree in environmental studies, got out, did it in co-op so that it would pay for itself. Got out of there, started working in a call center, and then 3 years in, I was like, I still live in my parents' basement because my child lives upstairs. It just made sense. I could probably follow my dreams, and yeah, and then I just dove in, and it was great.
And you mentioned that your uncle was an actor, but what did your parents do for a living when you were growing up?
Both teachers, both teachers. Very, very, very intellectual. They had a really big love of learning, and I really appreciate that. They taught me to learn, and that's a big deal.
And you mentioned that they taught you to learn, and did they have any impact on your choice of career?
Uh, Honestly, my it's horrible to say. They are extremely supportive. They are so kind to me. They let me live in their basement so I can follow my dreams. They watch my kid when I drive to Toronto for auditions. So, they're absolutely fantastic. But no, no, they didn't. Uh, my uncle Pat had an influence on me because of being an actor. My aunt Charlotte had an influence on me because of being an actor, and my other aunt and uncle, Uncle Douglas and Tante Isabella, had an influence on me because they would just, encourage my strangeness. So that really they all did. My parents didn't, but that's not because they're not amazing, supportive people.
Yeah.
They wanted me to be a teacher. They still want me to be a teacher so that I make a regular income. Oh well.
And you're also a single father, is that correct?
That is correct. It's not the way other people are single fathers because I do live with my parents, so I have a lot of support. Um, but my 14-year-old lives with my parents and I, and sees his mother. His mother's wonderful, but it just when he was really young, I grew up. I hate to say this, I grew up with suburban privilege. When we were young, it my family was able to provide more stability, and so it just made sense for him to live there. And now he's 14, and we wouldn't, we would be very emotionally heartbreaking to let him live at his mom's, but his mom's great.
And how does your son feel about you working in the entertainment industry?
He doesn't love it. um, he doesn't love it for two reasons. Number one is that uh, my parents worry about me and about me making enough money to support him. So he grew up hearing my dad be like, "Well, like, when are you gonna get a real job? Are you gonna be above the
Yeah.
poverty line? Are you gonna?" So when he's mad at me, which is frequent because he's 14, he'll be like, "Oh God, Dad, like, get a job and stuff."
Yeah.
So that's reason number one. Reason number two is that whenever I do a self-tape audition, I have to ask everyone to clear out the living room and be quiet, which is kind of frustrating for him. So yeah, my family tolerates a lot. Uh, he's a wonderful person, but he's not, he's not totally sold. Sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, I released a song," and he'll be like, "It was okay." Okay. Yeah.
I mean, at least he's honest.
He's very honest. He does not pull his punches with me, I did a short film. I showed it to him. He was like, "Yeah, you're acting a little bit over the top in scene 3." I'm like, "Oh God, he noticed. Oh man, I got out my game."
Mm,
Yeah.
many people believe that being an actor is challenging to the point where it becomes overwhelming and too much to handle. Why do you think that many people believe that?
Uh, Personally, I also believe that. Um, I every About once a year, I have a crisis where I break down emotionally and question myself and almost give up and then don't. It's been once a year for the last 5 years. It's a lot of rejection. I mean, probably the biggest thing is it's a lot of rejection. Like, if you the thing is that if you do an audition and you do it perfectly, you have now given up control over whether or not you will book that role, because now you are one of the people who killed it, and casting and the director will decide, well, we want them to look like this, we want them to look like this, we want them to have that. One time it worked in my favor. I went into an audition and I had a mustache and long hair because it was for the 80s, and the director was like, "Oh my God, you look like my dad." And I got a role in a Kit Kat commercial because I looked like the director's dad in the 80s. So I'm not saying it hasn't helped me, but it's like, if you kill it, you are now one of the contenders and have no control. And it's very hard to give your best, know that you killed it, and then not get selected, because then, your brain starts going, "Well, it's because you're not good enough. That's because you suck. What did you do?" Like, I would do an audition, walk out, and just like verbally in my internal monologue tear myself a new one every time, and I had to stop doing that because it made auditions so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
um yeah, and like, for a while, like, I was doing poorly in auditions, or I'd arrive late, or like there was always something that I was doing wrong, and it took me a while to realize that this was me maintaining control over the process. Because if I did everything right, I was no longer in control. Versus if I showed up late or had the wrong outfit or whatever, I could be like, well, that wasn't really my fault. I showed up late, and it wouldn't impact my sense of self worth. So it really made me process a lot of my self worth issues and a lot of my emotional, for lack of a better word, demons, because of the constant rejection and the constant instability and the constant being judged and judging yourself. That being
And
said, if you can get through it, it's very healthy.
yeah. What my acting coach, Tazito Garcia, always says to me is go to an audition, do your hardest, and then walk away and forget about it. If you get it, you get it, and that's amazing. And if you don't book it. Because another thing is what he has always said to me is how you're going to go to 100 of auditions before you get that one. But as soon as you get that one, that is going to be one of the biggest moments. And so that's always how I try and think of it when I go to auditions. Is how it's just like, okay, do your hardest and then it's out of your control and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, yeah, that's solid. That's solid. Also, Tizito's great. I also, I used to think about auditions as the means to getting the gig, and then you're under pressure, and you're like, oh my god, I want the gig, and then you don't look like someone who's the character. You look like you're someone who wants to be the character to get the gig. The camera catches that. So what I've learned how to do is to just really enjoy the audition, to go in and be like, man, I love auditioning. I'm so excited to get to play this character for this casting director, and make it about the
Hmm.
audition itself, not the role.
Well, and
That's
that's
helped.
it's really important. And now it is time to shake things up with our first Philip segue, which is a speed round of Would You Rather. Three
Whew.
questions, 30 seconds on the clock. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Would you rather be an extra in an Oscar winning movie or the lead in a box office bomb?
Box office bomb. I spend a lot of time playing deep, meaty roles in low budget indie films that go nowhere because I just love the role.
Would you rather have a pause or rewind button in your life?
Ooh, that is really, really hard. I'm gonna say pause because that would be healthier, like to take a moment of mindfulness before diving
Yeah.
in or readjust things before diving in. If I had a rewind button, I would undo some things that would be meant to be, and I would end up ultimately regretting having a rewind
That's a good way to think of it. I personally would choose a pause button just because I feel like it'd be super helpful. Just if you're trying to rush through like an essay or something, it's just like pause, take your time, do it, and then like pause and just finish first and everything. I
Not
don't
to
know, that's just
mention
what I would
fight
use it.
scenes. Not to mention fight scenes. Like someone is firing a gun and you're like, pause, okay, go. Shoo! Like,
Yes,
boom.
that'd be good.
Invincible.
And would you rather be the absolute best at something that no one takes seriously or be average at something well respected?
Oh man. I mean, I think what I've been doing with my career is to try to get really good at things that nobody takes seriously. So probably the first option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, which hurdles have you personally faced when it comes to acting, and how have you overcome them?
Uh Yeah, great question. Definitely death by attrition. Definitely many, many small hurdles. Many, oh, I did a really good job at that audition, and then I said something unprofessional to the casting and director on my way out. Oh, well, I can't do that again. Oh, well, I did poorly at that audition and beat myself up for 2 weeks and then did poorly at the next audition because I was thinking about that. So, like, definitely many small things. Probably the one biggest thing is like a mindset change where like I went in and I wanted to be rich and famous. I'm not saying I don't want that anymore, but through a lot of meditation and self-time and processing my demons, I now just I've managed to get to a point where I want to create good things that make myself and other people feel, and it's not about the fame or the money. So if I do something and it bombs, or if I do something and it doesn't make any money, that's not as bad because it's not about that. It's about
Yeah,
me loving the creative process. So that's been the biggest thing, is overcoming my scarcity mindset on like, oh my god, you need to make money. Oh my god, you're a failure. and being able to, when I remember, sit in a place of, I love creating. I want to create good things, so I'm going to do
It's a good way to think about it. And what's the most
it.
important thing you've learned so far in your career?
Yeah, probably that. Probably, like the yearly crisis thing. That's not a joke. I go through a yearly emotional breakdown where I almost quit acting, and the first few were just like, oh my god, like it's been blank years and I'm still not famous. I still work so hard on things that nobody sees. Like, what am I doing with my life? And it's really been that thing of like, society has this thing of success and here's why you're successful, but is that really as important as just enjoying what you do every day, enjoying the process? So that's been really huge for me, is learning to try to let go of my need to be successful and just allow myself to enjoy the creative process.
That's really good. And now, how have you been staying motivated and focused since the pandemic hit?
I'm lucky in that right before the pandemic hit, a bunch of things happened at once. I discovered meditation and mindfulness, got back into yoga, and went through some tough breakups that like really made me process my person and myself and my emotional issues. So that when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I have more time to meditate, do yoga, process my emotions, and feel better as a person. And then that just leads to creation, because you process your thing that you did, and then you start getting into that, and then suddenly you're writing a story about someone who was into an extreme version of what you went
Yeah.
through. Or that's really been it. Is the pandemic has given me more time for my emotional self and my physical self, and these things have just put me in a better place for motivation and creation.
And then, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the best advice I ever received was honestly just so simple and so deep that it really shattered me to the core. It's like every time I worry about my performance in an audition, or worry if my latest short film is going to go anywhere, it comes down from this mindset of scarcity and wondering if I'm enough as a person, and worrying about my self-worth. And I had this one person in my life who just held me by the face and said, you are enough exactly the way you are. You are worth loving yourself no matter what you do in life. And it took me a long time to actually like process that. But now, when I'm struggling, which is frequent, when my music video that I released doesn't get as many views, and when I didn't get on any radio shows with the song I just dropped, I can go, what, that's okay, because I am enough just by being here. I don't have to tear myself an emotional new one because I didn't fulfill the successful expectations that I wanted.
Yeah,
And then I can take that time that I would have spent tearing myself an emotional new one and recovering, and devote it to the next project. It's way better.
I totally get it. Okay, it's time for Spill It segue number 2, called Factor Fiction. Factor Fiction, the inventor of Batman, also created Superman.
Fiction.
Correct. It was a fiction.
Ah,
Factor
okay,
Fiction.
good. Yeah.
Donald Duck was a cartoon rabbit created by the Warner Brothers.
Fiction. He is a duck, not a rabbit. Donald Duck, the rabbit. Plot twist. Amazing. Yeah.
I was like,
Okay.
he's a duck. Sorry, oh my god,
I
that
just
was
I just
really
want to be in that room where they're like, okay, Warner Bros, we've got it. Okay, he's this he's this rabbit, and his name is Donald Duck. What do you think? You don't want him to be like Donald Rabbit? No, no, no.
funny.
Duck is his last name.
Oh my
Oh,
god. Sorry, that would just be funny, and now just imagining, like, everyone just sitting at a table just staring at these people like,
yeah,
just insert massive question mark. Alright,
yeah.
Factor Fiction. IMDb is a website that provides information about sports.
Fiction, and I know because I am on IMDb, and I do not play organized sports.
Correct. IMDb is a website that provides information about actors and movies.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about your music. You've recently released Decompressed, which is available on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, Amazon, and Pandora. Before we talk about the song, can you tell us what first got you into music?
I've just it's always been sort of a coping mechanism for me. So like if I'm really really sad, eventually what I'm sad about might become a song. When I fall in love, sometimes that results in a song. Sometimes it doesn't, but like and so, so I've spent my life writing songs about my insecurities and my girlfriends. This song felt like it was a gift to me from meditating and the universe. So this was the one where I was like, like I actually like the other songs were for me or someone I was dating. This one is a gift. This one needs to be given. So that's what made me take the jump to pay money to a music producer to make it into a real song.
What's your creative process like?
I mean, it's different for the different things. Like acting, the end result is very intuitive, but the top is very like, okay, here's the script, here's what I can find about the character, here's how I can break that down, here's how I can make that choices. It's almost more like being a craftsman. It's like here's the process that I go through to turn these words into this character. Whereas his writing is a little more like intuitive. It's a little more like I'm having these ideas and I'm feeling these things in the head of this character. I have to write them down, combined with a little bit of, okay, now what is the structure of the scene? What does my character want? So it's sort of in between the two. Music is great, is really fun to conceive because it's just very intuitive. Like writing music is like thinking these things and you just your head is full of these thoughts and then suddenly these thoughts have very specific wording and then they have a tune and
Yeah.
then you're singing them to yourself and then I'm reaching frantically for my phone and pushing voice record and singing into my phone and then a song is born.
And what would you say about your music is different?
Oh man, yeah, tough question. Like I don't know, I mean every every song is unique. My music is very distinctly me, but like of the songs that I've written, like the one I just released was this heartfelt breakdown song that was turned by the music producer into this kind of like fun, lilty, piratey gypsy ballad, versus like my next song is like a super sweet violin background emotional love song. And my song after that is like a thumpy pop song about inappropriate topics. So like my music comes from a very specific perspective of the world, which is my perspective of the world, and that's kind of it in terms of uniqueness.
Now, is there a story behind Decompress? And can you tell us what it is?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Decompressed came when, the pandemic was just riding high and I was in a place of having to come to terms with a bunch of things emotionally. And I was, stressed out about all the things I was doing, but like I also had these deeper emotions that were sort of coming up. So I parked my car at a park in Toronto and went running through the woods and rose off of Rosedale Road. And then I'm in the middle of the woods and I was meditating and it just felt so good that I started crying and then I started singing to myself like I was a baby in need of comfort through my tears and I was singing like literally like I need to de-stress, I need to decompress, to process my mind, leave things behind. So basically like the chorus of the song was me singing through my tears to myself as I had a mental breakdown off of Rosedale Road. uh but then afterwards, I recorded it on my phone and started like extrapolating it into verses and then brought it to Julian, a friend of mine who is a professional producer with Diamond Music in Toronto. And then it just went from there.
And Who are your main musical influences?
Wow. So growing up, my parents listened to classical and didn't like super believe in pop culture. So like my influences are just a mishmash of the things that friends of mine listened to. So my best friend in high school went through a metric phase. I love metric. He also went through an Eminem phase. I love Eminem. Like I gravitate towards either songs that make me feel or songs that pump me up or both. So like I love Ozone, Dragostea Dinte, Maria he, Maria who, because that came out when I was going to Romania to visit family, and so that really impacted me. But I love Britney Spears, "You Want a Piece of Me," because it's just so like, oh, uh, yeah. So but I mean, it's very song dependent, Like my current song sounds a bit like Sufjan Stevens because the music producer was like, oh, Michael's a kind of a gypsy heritage pirate liking guy. I'm gonna give it that feel. Versus my next song is gonna sound more like Ed Sheeran type. What's that really sappy love song? I'll be loving you until you're 70, like that, because that's the song.
And now let's play our final Spill It segue called Just a Minute. I'm going to give you a topic, and your task is to talk about that topic for 1 full minute. Are you
Woo!
ready?
Yes.
All right. And your topic is screenwriting. Go.
Screenwriting is a beautiful, delicious mix of everything you've ever experienced in your life combined with everything that other people who you've had deep conversations with have ever experienced in their life, combined with the not formulaic, but the very scientific structure of how to create a scene. So, on the one hand, you've got your friend who had a huge heart to heart that ended up with them crying about how they were raised shooting guns by their abusive father, and you're like, wow, there's a concept here. And then there's taking that and going, okay, how can I extrapolate that into an overarching arc? I want this to be a feature, so here's my high points, here's my low points. I want the emotional piece to go, and so it's a really weird blend of like emotional experiences that I have had or experienced
Mhm.
vicariously through people telling me, combined with structure.
Y- Excellent. We have
Yeah.
completed the entire minute. Okay, let's have fun and get to know more about you with some of Spillet's just curious questions. If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
Oh wow, yeah. I'd be something with like deep roots of emotion, but like kind of like feminine and flowy and ethereal. So like I'm thinking willow. I'd be a willow,
I quite like willow trees personally.
right? Or like an aspen, which is like the cheap knockoff brand of willows. Maybe I'd be an aspen. I don't know.
And now you're a new addition to a crayon box. What color would you be and why?
Is leopard print a color? I don't. No, I'm joking. Uh,
Be cool though.
right. I don't know how it would work, but that would be cool. So it's like there's two sides of me, there's the side of me that was raised camping and loves martial arts and canoeing and being outdoors and pushing myself against the elements and holding my breath in cold water, and that part would be like a nice deep foresty browny green. But there's also this part of me that, likes acting and filmmaking and events and wearing silk robes, and that would be like a nice, vibrant pink or purple. That would be like the spillet color, like, yeah,
Color.
yeah, like that one.
I'm very excited for this question. Describe your life using only film titles.
Oh man. Okay, so I'm gonna have to like preface this with a confession. I didn't grow up watching a lot of movies. My acting and my screenwriting comes from like my life, my emotions, my stories. I don't know a lot of movies, so I'm gonna try this. Okay. Knocked Up. That was a big part of my life. Uh, is there a movie title about just having a tentative hold on reality? I'm not good at this. Uh, what are some movie titles? Oh, I really wish I had watched more movies all of a sudden.
Perfect.
Like, Is there a movie title about sad white dudes finding themselves?
Not that I know of, though.
Leave It to Beaver? Uh, yeah, I'm really bad at this. The Force Awakens, because through
Hey,
meditating, I have finally realized the force of the
yeah.
universe awakening in me.
I love how though you just suddenly just came to that conclusion. That was the one.
Well, that and Knocked Up, those two.
Yeah, but the Force Awakens
Ooh,
awakens probably
and maybe Doctor Strangelove, cause like always been strange but very loving, but I'm not a doctor.
true, but still. Now, what business would you love to start?
I've actually thought about this. I almost started a business and then I decided to go with acting instead of trying to promote people growing ivy on their walls because I think there needs to be a lot more greenery in cities and ivy and trellises are especially trellises because people are worried about ivies wrecking their walls. If you throw up a couple of wires or a little wooden frame, you can have like a vine on a trellis. So I almost started a company called Trellis that was literally just focused on that. Before I had my quarter life crisis and dove into following my dreams, I did a bachelor's of environmental studies and I really wanted to save the world with businesses that help people through better environmental practices, and that hasn't left me. I mean, one of the you know, the Ganges River in India, a great example. People bathe in it, people drink out of it. It is littered with waste. A lot of people get sick because of drinking and bathing from the Ganges River. But it's filled with biological waste, which, including human feces, is a great source of drying out and burning for energy. So I really want to start a company that would obviously have to work with the sacredness of the river that cleans out some of the bio waste from that river and repurposes it to creating clean energy and also a safer river. Stuff like that
That's
I
yeah.
really like.
Something like that would also be a really good idea just because it's a win-win. You get a cleaner river and you have more electricity. So,
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is that there are so many things in our society where we do it this way because we've always done it this way, but if you take your head out of that and look at it again, you can go, "Wait a second. There is a win-win here," that when you realize this, you're like, "Why isn't anybody doing this?" Sidebar, one of my goals in life is to become a political figure. I'm thinking Prime Minister of Canada, but we'll see what happens because I just have so many ideas like this that I think could help people, but nobody listens to me because I'm an unemployed actor in his parents' basement. But that's why I want to be the prime
and now it is time for our final question of the day. And it is, what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
I don't want it to sound like I'm repeating myself, but basically that same thing of I am drawn to this process because I love creating and using my abilities to feel and to think outside of my current reality and feel it and then translate that into something that will
Mhm.
hopefully make other people feel. That's why I'm here, and my initial desire for fame and pathological need for attention were only to get me here. So I would love to have gone in knowing that that's why I wanted to do this and not judging myself for my pathological need for attention because I would have known that it was just the thing that was needed to get me into this world of creation so that I could do this thing that I personally feel like I'm meant to do. I don't know, but that I love though.
That's really good.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have. But before we go, do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to leave our audience with?
Mm, you know, creation is therapeutic. If you have an idea at 2 in the morning or a bad dream that just hits you vividly or an emotion that won't get rid of, write it down. Write it down or say, if you can't write it, push your voice recorder app on your phone. They're free, so like everyone should get one. And just tell it to your phone so you can listen to it later and process it. Or take a picture of yourself and write I'm feeling this way and share it. Like creation helps us get in touch with ourselves. And when we create something, the people who see it get to vicariously get in touch with something inside of themselves as well. So never be afraid to create. Never be afraid to take the idea or the emotion or whatever you've got and turn it into something. It'll feel great. Even if nothing else happens other than it makes you feel good, that's worth the price of admission.
That's a really good piece of advice. And
Thank you.
now, once we're off air, where can our viewers find you?
Oh man, Instagram, actor, like an actor, dot, like a period, Michael, Michael. So I post a lot of stuff on Instagram. I'm also, if you send me a Facebook request and you seem like a real person, I will add you back. Michael Masurkevitch, Michael Masurkevitch. Also, if you search on YouTube Borrowed Thoughts, Decompress, or Decompress Borrowed Thoughts, you will find my song. If you search Decompress or Borrowed Thoughts on Spotify, you will find my song and all those other music things. If you search Pirate Mike, you will find a web series that I did that is on YouTube. Search Canadian Love on YouTube. You will find an interview show that I did where I interviewed people about their emotions and how their politics were informed by their life experience. And that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being ready to spill it with us, Michael.
Thank you for letting me spill it. This was a great time. Also, I just want to reiterate, you are a boss. Keep flinging nunchucks and interviewing people. It's really cool.
Thank you. This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to end here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head on over to our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Like, share, and get involved. Until next time, stay determined, stay driven, and always be ready to spill it. Eccaia, out.